this video, we are going to learn about the basic graphs, and then we're going to look at what makes those basic graphs shift vertically and horizontally or reflect across the x-axis. So let's look at this first basic graph. This is just a linear function. If your x is just x and it's not squared or cubed or in an absolute value or in the denominator of a fraction, that's the shape that you are going to get. It's going to just be a line. Looking at the squaring function. So in other words, if you're looking at this and your highest exponent of the function is a 2, it's going to be a squared graph, which makes this basic shape we call a parabola, and it looks like a U. So there's that basic shape. X cubed. In other words, if your highest exponent is a 3, you are going to be a cube function, which will have this general shape. The square root function. You'll notice that if your x is underneath a square root, this is what the basic square root function will look like. Cube root. So you'll notice this one, instead of a square root, it has y equals the cube root of x. So that's what that basic function will look like. And the absolute value function, if your x is inside an absolute value, then you will have this shape that looks like a V. And the last one that we are going to talk about, the reciprocal function, or in other words, if your x is in the denominator of a fraction, that is what that shape will look like. All right, so let's look at the function here on the left. We have y equals x plus 2 squared minus 3. So first of all, what is going to give it its shape is this x squared right here. In other words, it's going to have that U shape like the x squared graphs do. So let's show what that would look like if this graph was just the basic x squared graph without any movement. That graph would be starting at the origin and having that U shape, just like the one that you see on the squaring function on the notes on the right. So let's look and see, what do these numbers here and here do to the graph? The numbers that are inside, I like to call them inside numbers. So let's look at what the inside numbers do. So inside numbers, in other words, if you are inside parentheses or inside a square root or inside an absolute value symbol, that's what makes you an inside number. Those numbers shift the graph horizontally, which means left or right, but opposite of the direction that the sign is. So in other words, this plus a plus actually shifts the graph to the left, and a minus shifts it to the right. So what this plus 2 on the inside will do is shift this point right here. It's going to shift it to the left 2. Now, the outside numbers. Outside numbers are numbers that are not inside. They are outside of the parentheses, or outside of the absolute value symbol, or outside of a square root. Those numbers shift you vertically or up and down with the sign. So in other words, a plus shifts you up and a minus shifts you down. So let's look. First of all, this +2 on the inside shifted this point at the center called the vertex. It shifted it to the left 2. Now we have this -3 on the outside. So after we shift left 2, then we are going to shift down 3, which just moves that parabola to the left 2 and down 3. These shifting rules work for all of your basic shapes.